Excited to be here today. We have a really great conversation and dialogue around growing our sport. You heard from Steve. It's key that we continue growing, getting more diverse and younger audience. So what are some of those key growth strategies that we're implementing at the league? What are some of those driver development and diversity, and how are we bringing our partners like Toyota into this ecosystem? So we've got a lot to dive into. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off with Pete. Pete, I'll start with you. Let's talk more broadly before we get into NASCAR. What are some of those kind of current landscape macroeconomic trends that we're seeing out in the landscape, and then those behaviors and considerations that we as a league are taking into account, and then how we're looking to grow our sport and deliver on some of those objectives that Steve mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of the Steve Phelps just mentioning how we're fundamentally a different company and different industry than we were as recent as 5 years ago. I think we were guilty of really just kind of focusing within the kind of NASCAR, ecosystem, if you will. And we really are trying to focus more on the broader kind of world that we're, operating and competing in. And I think we know that it's a very competitive and complex world. I think just starting with, consumers and people and how they're feeling and what they're doing and how they're prioritizing. Just looking at macroeconomic, while you see things like concerns over, the economy or inflation kind of stabilizing, consumer debt is still on the rise, and we're finding that our customers and people, fans, they're holding on to their money a little longer, and they're kind of like prioritizing what are those experiences that I'm going to put my kind of discretional kind of money, which is finite, and sort of prioritize that. So I think we want to make sure that we're mindful of giving kind of a good proposition to consumers just thinking about the competitive landscape as well. I think if you also look at the future younger kind of NASCAR fans, the reality is I don't have my phone on me, but they prioritize experiences on a device more than they do, which is crazy to a 51-year-old, more than they do like a human kind of physical experience. And that's one of the reasons why we are kind of doubling down on investment to make the NASCAR experience as competitive and great as possible. A lot of evolution, a lot of candidly transformation around our event experience. And look no further than the music festival and the work that Curtis and his team have done. And it's really everything that is around the race that is almost as important as the race itself. And I think we were probably guilty of being precious about, the race, but people want more variety. They want a cultural experience. They want music. They want food. They want drinks. So we're doing a better job of that, and I think even more opportunity and work ahead. And then I think one of the last sort of important considerations is how people, particularly, again, younger sports fans, are consuming sports, whether that's a live broadcast or any highlight or anything with, athletes or teams, and almost 2/3 of that is done on social and digital platforms. So we are being more aggressive, and we'll, I think, talk about this in a bit, but with our sort of content and presence and storytelling in platforms where people are. The YouTubes and the TikToks and the Amazons are as important as some of the channels and platforms where we've kind of relied on getting the majority of eyeballs. So a lot of just the world is changing at a rapid pace, and just challenging ourselves to kind of look more broader in terms of how we sort of approach our business strategy and investment strategy. So
that's great. So with that, let's look at drivers, and I think star power, there's no surprise today. You look at Caitlin Clark and women's basketball, shattering merchandise sales and viewership numbers, surpassing the men's basketball tournament. First time ever. It's huge. Amazing. So how are we at NASCAR? Can you talk a little bit about what are some key priorities and how we're approaching drivers and star power? And I think that'll blend a little bit into some of our driver development, but just a bit more about how we use our athletes in our marketing and brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, not unlike other sports and entertainment, I think the hook of fandom, the challenge for us is people not really getting or understanding the sport, and then not identifying or relating or having like a favorite driver. Steve Phelps mentioned this, but like all sports, kind of the star power of a team or a league, it ebbs and flows. And we took a lot of hits, 5, 6, 8 years ago in terms of star power. On the good side of things, we have a lot of great young talent that are competing at the highest levels. They're winning. They look different. They're younger. There's more diversity. But they're not at that kind of level in terms of being household names and star powers. So we are guilty. Again, we're sharing a lot of inside secrets. But I think as a marketing person at NASCAR, we were really focused a lot on the race, candidly, and the competition. And I'm sure I'm a little biased, but I'd put NASCAR is the best racing on the planet, auto racing. And so I think people have learned to expect. Some weekends are races better than others, absolutely. But by and large, it's a phenomenal racing. So we've really kind of shifted away from what people know and expect, like great racing, and a lot more to like getting these younger drivers to be kind of bigger names. A couple of recent examples. If you haven't watched the NASCAR Netflix series Full Speed on Netflix, I encourage you to do so. I think it does a masterful job with a very broad global platform to get people to kind of understand. In this case, it was our playoffs. The format, the strategy. Everything that kind of goes into that, but B, to see the drivers with their kind of helmets off and their fire suits off. And Denny Hamlin, he's one of our, kind of not like drivers or whatever, but a big name. We love Denny Hamlin, but he's a Toyota driver. But he's got a lot of snark to him. But you see the softer side of Denny with his kids and his family and his home, which we hadn't seen in that kind of broad of a platform. Another kind of a recent investment is in November we cut the ribbon on a new state-of-the-art productions and content headquarters adjacent to our research and development center, and that is really for the industry, and it's for us to exponentially grow the content and storytelling that is distributed on various platforms. And we deliberately are trying to make it closer to the drivers and the teams to make it just more kind of approachable and easier for us to get more of the content and this storytelling as well. And then one thing that is going to be kind of commensurate with our new TV partner media broadcast deal that starts next year is a driver ambassador program. So we're going to get a lot more aggressive working with drivers, putting them in partnerships, integrations, content that is outside, again, of our world, putting them in eyeballs of other sports fans, people outside of the NASCAR ecosystem. And we're going to make it worth their while to do so. So I would expect that our star power sort of status as it is today in terms of kind of scale and stuff is going to be exponentially greater in the coming years.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and switch over to Mike, kind of taking a little bit of that driver and the star power, but then some of the larger, more broad partnerships that you bring to life. Toyota does an incredible job of staying true to your brand and the established visions, whether it's your new NFL partnership or it's NASCAR. How do you determine what the right programming is and then the go-to-market approach to bring these partnerships to life and then including the NASCAR ecosystem?
Yeah, so when we look in those partnerships, you look at almost two frames of mind is what's the national, then the local. Through a company, we're all about community and to give back. So from a national perspective, it's we have the right to say we're the official partner of NASCAR and this track competition, and it tells a story about the brand. When you tie in that community piece, it's about the local, what you can do. As we're looking at these official track sponsorships or where we're going, we always challenge ourselves is how do we be there for more than 3 days? We just don't show up with the race. So how do we tie it back to the community? And it doesn't always work, right? And there's a lot going on, but 2 years ago in Daytona, the Volusia County schools, they needed sand. Like the schools needed sand. So we brought in sand, built a sand sculpture, tore it all down, and donated it all to the schools. So just a way to give back. We've done things, partner with NASCAR Foundation for bike builds. So that's how we really try to tie it in. And what is important about that local community piece is when you have the dealers involved, it's an unstoppable movement, especially when they can rally around a point. There's things we've done at Richmond, and I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but track laps for charity and this, how to use those track assets. Virginia Special Olympics was very big to that dealer group in Richmond. So they went and did basically track laps for charity. They did a fundraiser and presented that as part of the Toyota Owners 400 over Easter weekend. So it's very, very near to them. So that's how we kind of look at those events of how do we tie it back in. And then locally in the St. Louis region, is, the dealer bodies came together and want to be part of Worldwide Technology Raceway. And being part of that, it's just not being the official vehicle at a NASCAR race. It's by being part of that community, to being able to use that track and that asset for 300 plus days a year, and how to utilize it and be part of that community and tie those things in. And I guess you want to go back a slide. So a community piece, mobility pit box. So through that national lens of how do we make the sport better, how do we give back? About 2 years ago, one of our Olympic athletes, Elise Willoughby, her husband, Sam Willoughby, he was an Olympic BMX racer, but in an accident became paralyzed. Avid NASCAR fan. When I say avid NASCAR fan, we get text messages throughout the week about strategies. He wants to know it. But he often wants to come to the races with us, and we host him as much as her Olympic schedule and their Olympic schedule allows. About 2 years ago, we asked him what we could do to make the experience better, and he's like, man, I would just love to go sit on top of a pit box. He's like, just can't. From there, we started this mobility pit box. We call it this almost like the Field of Dreams program. It's like we're going to build it, and we'll figure the rest out, but we got to build it. So we built this pit box, and the cool thing about this pit box, for those who've been to a NASCAR race, ever watched a pit box be set up, it takes about 4 to 5 people, about 30 minutes. We challenged the build team for this, that it could be set up with 1 to 2 people in that same time frame. So it's a lot of automation. It's almost foolproof, and it's a dedicated team that sets it up. So we deploy it. It has a scissor lift that can let anybody with mobility issues up on the pit box. It can hold 3 wheelchairs plus guests. But to take it one step further from that community, but also that Toyota Mobility for All approach, our commitment to NASCAR was not to brand it Toyota, because we did not want another sponsor, another OEM, not wanting to use it because it had a Toyota logo on it. So that's why you'll see it at all the tracks. It'll say NASCAR Mobility Pit Box. And that was our way to kind of give back to that sport and tie in that community piece and how to make experiences better. And it can't go to every track because of space constraints, but it goes to the majority of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about communities. So Brandon, this one's for you. It's not about just the communities we race in or we have racetracks, but the communities and bringing these various, diversity and the inclusion and these ecosystems together. So I want to talk a little bit more on the driver side and cultural relevance and how NASCAR, how we're working with our drivers and our communities to extend ourselves into the markets that we race at.
Yeah, for sure. So you heard Steve talk a bit about Daniel Suarez and Bubba Wallace. So I think really going back to probably Pete 2017 with Daniel's Amigos, we had the opportunity based on a lot of the things that Pete led and based on a lot of research to understand that there was a sort of this intrinsic familiarity with NASCAR from the Hispanic community. And so from that, and obviously the ascent of Daniel Suarez and his talent carrying him forward, being able to become the first Mexican-American driver to win a National Series championship back in 2016, I think it was, when he won the Xfinity Series championship. There were sort of this marriage born of like, how do we bring all of this together, and how do we really double down and figure out how we can get the Hispanic community more involved with the sport. And so Daniel's Amigos was formed and born and has continued to blossom. We've had some great partners with that program over the years with Coca-Cola and some other folks who have been able to step up. Daniel's team has always been very good about, either of the teams that he's been with has been very good about making sure that he gets to the racetrack and is able to participate. But the community leaders that this event brings together, the experience, I had a chance to experience it last year in Atlanta. It was great. They had a mariachi band. You're there and with the just completely folks experiencing the sport for the first time. Daniel's engaged. Folks are engaged, eating, drinking, having a good time, and learning about the sport, and just being able to commune with others as they do the same. So kind of building off of the success of that program, obviously with when Bubba came along in 2020, we wanted to do the same thing and replicate that with Bubba's Block Party. And so we are in the stages of that, obviously a bit less developed and a little bit younger, I would say, in its tenure, but certainly have seen some of those same touch points be able to come through in some strategic markets, if I can say it. Over the past couple of years. So we talked about the street course race in Chicago. That was a great event for us. Birmingham, and it's gone to Richmond a couple times. And so really just being able to take those driver personalities and be able to put them in places, in authentic spaces within the community, for people to be able to come touch them and be able to see we understand their representation in that way as it relates to fandom and just general, I would say, alignment, right, with the sport is really important. And so it's been cool to be able to see both of those drivers sort of, be able to get in there and meet a lot of their fans and interact with the communities in which we race.
That's fantastic. So we heard, obviously, Dave helped sponsor Bubba, and a lot of the growth of NASCAR. Sure, we talk a lot about the Cup Series and our top level, but we've got our Xfinity Series and our Truck Series and a ladder system all the way down. So I think it's important that if there's a little girl, how do I become part of NASCAR, whether she's on the R&D side or the officiating or wants to come work in the sport or be a driver? So this one goes to Brandon and Mike. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunities that exist, whether it's in the Drive for Diversity program or the driver internship program, and how we strengthen that and then show that there are platforms and avenues for anyone to be able to get into the sport?
Yeah, well, I think with the Drive for Diversity program, we're celebrating 20 years this year, so that program's been around. And I can tell you from being around the sport at that time, it took some shots from the media and from others in terms of like, hey, when are we going to see this happen? I think we were having a good conversation at dinner last night. A lot of folks don't know or a lot of the troubles and toils and how hard it is to drive a race car, how hard it is to win races at the National Series level, let alone clear up to the Cup Series level. So early in that program's sort of iteration, there was a lot of questions from media, fans alike, like when are we going to see the fruits sort of this program? But 20 years later, you look and we're on the, we're here and we're now talking about 3 drivers, and Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, and Bubba Wallace, who have all won at the Cup Series level. And then when you break that down this year, certainly we'll take the momentum that we started the season with 4 Drive for Diversity alum winning races within the first 5 races of the season, So we've seen that really clear up from the Truck Series all the way up to the Cup Series this year. So that's been great. And Mike can talk a little bit more about Toyota's role in that. And what I'll say and kind of brag on them a little bit is that they have been a partner of the Drive for Diversity program over the course of its existence. But the fact that they have their own sort of driver development program is something that really mimics what we seek to sort of represent within our Drive for Diversity program is also great.
Yeah, thank you. And, so we have a driver development program. We call it TD2 for short, Toyota Driver Development. Really the goal for this is not only is it hard to win at this level, it's expensive. This isn't the sport you can get into as a kid without some kind of financial backing. It's just the reality of it. So part of our driver development program is we try to search the world for the next best driver in their discipline and not taking funding into consideration, right? So we can help absorb some of that funding issue to try to help them grow and develop. And, partnership back in there, a lot of them have come through a Toyota one way or the other, whether it be Kyle, Daniel, and then we kind of started this program. And so within this program is we have dedicated funds set aside for female and diverse drivers, so we can make sure that they have a seat in the program. So right now, going through the program, Jade Avedizian, who is last year became the first female driver to win a major championship in dirt racing. Isabella Robusto, Weston Workman, who's new to the program, running in our GR Cup series, and Tyler Gonzalez. He actually came to us, started in our program last year, won the GR Cup championship, and then got promoted to GT4 racing. So as you look at this driver development, as you can tell, it's just not NASCAR. We have two paths: sports car racing and stock car racing. So as we kind of grow this, it's important to us. One of the questions we usually get about this program is they actually eventually graduate out or move out, because at the end of the day, there's only so many Cup seats, so many Xfinity seats. And it's one of those things is that if we make the sport better by trying to groom drivers, give them the opportunities, give them good equipment, it's better for the sport. And because it's just not driving the car, it's everything that happens off the track that you don't see. Is a lot of these kids coming up, they've grown up eating hot dogs and hamburgers at the racetrack with their dad, and they're starting to do these competitive things, right? And it's just diet, nutrition, working out. So within our facility we have in Mooresville, they have access to dietitians, physical training, medical doctors to help teach them, and even our dietitians have taken the young kids to stores to teach them how to grocery shop, because they've never lived on their own before, and their idea of going to dinner every night was Taco Bell or McDonald's. So that was one of those assets of those programs that kind of helped grow. And if you start looking at Xfinity and Cup Series, the drivers are all sprinkled throughout now that have come through. So it's just great to see them and the partnerships that we've made.
It's fantastic. So we'll close this out today. Thank you all for your time. Want to hear one last from each of you. What are you most excited about as you look to the future of our sport?
Okay, I'm looking forward, like the thing I'm most excited about is like the reinvention of how we interact with fans. They're getting younger, more diverse, and we will all have, I think, have the same marketing, younger, more diverse audience. But as you can start seeing a shift from how we're activating, talking, communicating, and I feel like as a organization of NASCAR, the OEMs, as all three of us, I think we're all kind of rallied behind the idea of trying to grow that sport. And when you have everybody singing from the same song sheet and can work that, I feel like that growth is going to be great for the sport.
I've got a tie, so I actually have two. I think the first, I already hit on this, but is our star power kind of potential. And I think we've got the plans and resources and kind of commitments in place. And I think 2025 and the years ahead, I think are going to be kind of a game changer in that department. And it's so important to recruit new fans. The second piece is maybe a little less sexy, but just all things kind of data. And we've, in the past couple of years, as part of our kind of transformation journey, really propped up our data strategy, investment, acquisition. And now, again, we've got kind of the tools and the MarTech in place where we're having way more very thoughtful, strategic kind of engagement with customers, and particularly new people that are new to the sport. And if it came through, our database and they were part of Bubba's Block Party, how we nurture that and what channel and what message and what creative and content is very different than maybe a long-standing fan. So being way more thoughtful of that I think is going to help again to recruit new fans, but help with the loyalty and engagement of existing fans.
And because of all that, I'm excited about the opportunity we all have, frankly, from working in the sport, and the opportunity that you all have to be a part of the sport, and what that means just moving forward for our mark, and I feel like our era within that. I mean, I feel like a lot of the changes that we've talked about today, so where we are with our business, the things that we're exploring into because of all the data, because of the things that we're doing in the community, where we race, and just sort of the expansion of the brand, what opportunity this group has to really, mark our names in NASCAR history.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the time today and appreciate you all joining us. The NASCAR ecosystem is quite a journey from leagues to teams to drivers and incredible partners like Worldwide Technology and Toyota. So we thank everyone in part of this ecosystem for what we do. We hope that you found today insightful. We're here for any questions afterwards, so feel free to reach out to us. And then I'm going to close this out. As Mike mentioned, Toyota does a great job at providing access and awareness at our racetrack and our community. So we're going to go ahead and close out with a quick video of the Toyota Mobility Pit Box so you can see how it comes to life at a racetrack.
Ready to rise? To the challenge? Above obstacles. Above perceptions. Above it all. If so, we're looking for you. Join us at Toyota Racing.